Warden's Word. I'm Dave Breisch, Senior Warden in New Creation Anglican Church. This post is for September 15th. The title for today's post is, Let's Go. In the 26th chapter of St. John's Gospel, we have the account of Jesus taking 3 of his disciples with him into the Garden of Gethsemane. And he tells the disciples to wait and to watch while he goes away to pray. And Jesus comes back from praying and he finds the disciples asleep. He wakes them up and tells them to stay awake, to be alert and to watch while he prays. And so he goes away a second time to pray. And he comes back and he finds them asleep again. And he wakes them up, same instructions. And then he goes away to pray for the third time. And he returns, unfortunately, finding the disciples asleep once again. And he wakes them up and he says to them, "You can take your rest and sleep later, but now rise, let's get going." And at that moment, Jesus, of course, knew what was about to happen and where he was headed, where he was going. But I would imagine that the disciples didn't know what was about to occur and where Jesus was taking them, in part because they had just awakened from sleep. And I think for most of us, when we wake up from sleeping, we're a little groggy. We aren't functioning clearly on all 8 cylinders. It takes us some time to clear the cobwebs and be ready for whatever we need to do. Well, Jesus was ready, and he says to the disciples, "Rise, let us be going." And so the disciples do wake up and they follow him. And all of a sudden they realize what's going on as Jesus leads them to the point of interacting with his betrayer and those who had come to arrest him. Well, I think Jesus probably makes the same statement to each of his followers. And he says to each of us at some point in our lives, either on a daily basis or whenever it's appropriate from his perspective to say it to us, he says to us, "Rise, let us be going." And we have no idea at that point where Jesus is going, where he might be taking us, where he might be leading us. And we're faced with a decision time. Do we trust him? Do we love him enough to follow him and let him lead? Or do we hesitate and maybe even say no? But Jesus has a place to go, a place to be, and so off he goes, whether we go with him or not. And Jesus probably says that statement to each of his followers for different reasons. I think one of the reasons might be that each of us find ourselves in times of despair or despondency, depression, confusion. And Jesus comes to us and in that moment, in that time, he says, "Rise, let us be going." And it's a time for us to let Jesus lift us up out of those pits, out of that despair, out of that depression, and follow him. Other times, Jesus might make the same statement to us, "Rise, let us be going," because he wants to take us on a different path, in a different direction than where we were headed, where we wanted to go. And he wants us to follow him where he wants us to go with him. And another reason could be Jesus comes to us and he says, "Rise, follow me." because he wants to lead us into a new opportunity or to meet new people. Opportunities and people we had no idea even existed or were a possibility. But of course, Jesus knew that. And he wants to take us to have those opportunities with him or to be with people that he wants us to be with. And so it's an important statement that Jesus makes to his followers. It's a time of decision for each of us who want to follow Jesus. Do we rise up with him? And do we follow him? Do we let him lead where he wants to take us? And of course, I hope that we do. Even though each of us, I'm sure, has hesitated and declined that invitation at times in our lives, but God is faithful. And Jesus comes back, and once again he says to us, rise, let us be going. So I pray that we're each willing to follow him, that we each hear him when he says that to us, and that with the help of the Holy Spirit, we do rise up and we do follow Jesus. And I thank you for listening, and I pray that God will richly bless you. Thanks.